So, good morning, everybody. And what I'll do is I know the topic for my keynote is digitization and sustainability, but I'm a startup guy and a VC now, so I think I will also add innovation to that. Digitization without innovation is very hard to talk about. So it'll be a mix and match of things, and I'll take you to what's happening as we see in India, so you get a context of where we stand in India with respect to innovation, because a lot of good things are happening here. Love to share some of those with you. So, yeah, so this gives you a snapshot of where India is. Where India is with respect to startups. If you look at it, the numbers look very good, right? I'm not going to go through the numbers, but what I want to kind of give you a quick history of how we have evolved to where we are today, right? So if you look at India, we started with mid-90s with Y2K, right? The conversion of dates. That's the start of the revolution of IT in India. And then late 90s, we started maintaining code. And then early 2000, we started development. And along with that came the GCCs, the Global Centers of Excellence, or now they're called Global Innovation Centers. And then, so gradually it evolved, and 2010 is where startups started coming in India, right? The VC journey started in India 2010. So if you look at it, the startups, the investment, VC is a fairly young industry in India. There's still lot of headroom, ways to go in terms of maturity of what we need to do. And 2010, along with GCCs, we started developing products, architecting products in India. And 2010, 2015 is all about B2C companies, right? We saw the Swiggies and the Flipkarts of the world and so on and so forth. So that phase went through, and starting 2015, 2018 is where actual product companies started in India, right? Startups. I'm only talking about startups because large companies are innovating, because innovation happens in large companies, but faster innovation happens in startups only because of less bureaucracy, not because of talent, because talent is available everywhere. But all of us have worked for large companies, and we know what it takes to push something through. So innovation happens much faster in startups, and now we are seeing the phase in India where a lot of startups in product innovation are coming up. Now that's a great thing for the country. And in addition to that, there is one other key change that has happened in India recently, which is defense buying from startups. That was never the case in India. So if you track what is happening, defense has created a different organization called IDEX. IDEX puts up challenges, either because through DRDO, Navy, or Air Force, or Army, and any startup can bid for it. And if you're given a grant, you're guaranteed 10x of your grant amount in terms of purchase. Okay, I think this will be a phenomenal shift if that works. It's still in the very early stages, but if IDEX were to work in India, I think we'll start seeing phenomenal shift, because what has kept India back in innovation and sustainability is the fact that there is nobody to buy the startup products in India. And you cannot build a deep tech product in India and say, I'll go sell it in Europe or I'll go sell it in US. There's no hope, because people will ask, what have you done? How does your product work? So it doesn't work. So we are all very excited about it in our industry, and there's a big shift in the VC industry as well, wherein people are now starting to put money into product innovation companies, some of which will be deep tech. I don't want to use the term deep tech very loosely, because we say SaaS is deep tech, which is not the case. But I think true innovation will start to happen in India, and we should all watch for it, right? So that's the context for what's happening in India today. Very exciting time, and the numbers here speak for itself, because if you look at it, $175 billion in Indian context is a lot of money, because you all know how much money we use to send Chandrayaan, which is one Hollywood movie, is what it takes to send something to the moon. So there's a huge differentiator that India can bring to the table. So in terms of startup funding, obviously the last year has been dismal, right? But we all expect cycles in our life. There's no such thing, nothing is positive all the time. For anything that goes up has to come down, and then it averages out over a period of time. So we are in fact seeing the downtrend right now, and we expect that to continue for another couple of quarters. But after that, we expect that across the world things will start to improve. I think we took two big back-to-back hits. One was COVID, and post-COVID, the irrational exuberance. You saw what happened in the industry with respect to value versus valuation. Valuations got way out of control. We got whacked. So the correction is happening now, and we always know it's a pendulum. You swing to the other side. So it went all the way to the left, now it's coming all the way to the right, and hopefully it will start swinging in the right direction very soon. So India has been no exception to it. So the number of startups, number of deals, they're all self-correcting now, and this is bound to happen. If you look at the sectors in sustainability, I'm sure you all are aware of it. But in our own mind, when we look at this, because Ideaspring as a fund, we also have invested in some of these companies. But there is renewable energy, which is a key thing. And I'm saying, in all these cases, India is focused on solving some of these problems. I'm not saying we're solving all the problems, but there is impetus from the government. There is impetus from companies now becoming aware. For example, Tata, one of the largest industrial houses in India, is very, very focused and very, aware of what it takes to be environmentally safe, socially safe, right? It's not about just environmental safe, but also social safe. And the concept of CSR coming into India and then trying to do corporate social responsibility. And corporate social responsibility also includes sustainability and environmental friendliness. So I think there's a whole bunch of things that are happening in the market today that is enabling all these sectors to move forward, because obviously two things are required for anything to move forward, right? One is your intention to do it, and second most important is the capital required to do it, because nothing moves without money. We all know that. You can have whatever intention you want, but if there's no capital to support it, then it stops right in its track right there. So I think a lot of stuff is happening on all these different sectors. And with the recent European mandate of saying you need to know what the carbon tax is before they import anything, or they're going to add a tax, and that is causing a little bit more ruffle in all the industry and in the startup space. So it's an evolving evolving space. A lot of things are happening, and then we are also looking at it quite closely. But in terms of the global funding, obviously the peak was about 3 years ago. In any startup, any graph you look at, 2021 will stand out as the time where there was maximum investment that went into any startup. But then that's true even with sustainability. If you look at the data, that's what you see across all these sectors. But I will not go with the data we have for the past 1 year, because it's definitely quite tough. But you see that, but I read a report, I don't know if some of you might have read it in Wall Street Journal yesterday, that ESG as a generic sector is losing its shine a little bit, because like anything else, everything was ESG. If you talk to anybody 2 years ago, it's all about ESG. Funds wanted to invest in only those companies that have ESG policies in them, so on and so forth. A lot of repercussions on that, but the article said now, a lot of hedge funds that are just focused on ESG now are giving money back to the people. So I think ESG also has to stabilize at some point of time. So when we talk about sustainability as a topic, which is what we are talking about here today, I think it will all even out at some point of time. Same graph held true even for ESG. It went up quite a bit. I think it is coming down, but we all know climate is important. We all know environment is important, and people will invest in these. And then, as an investment in India, I don't have the exact data. I was trying to get the data as to how many funds have raised capital just to say we'll only invest in sustainability or whatever. That data is not clear. So it's not. So I didn't want to present anything, but we know that every fund, including us, and although our fund, sustainability is not a key parameter for us, right? At least for me, it is not. But there are some companies that we have invested in that kind of borders this area, and I'll give you those examples. But in India, there are a few funds I know at least that have said, ESG is a specific focus for us. But the problem is they will try and pick any startup and then say, put a ESG spin to it, right? And that is not true ESG, in my opinion, because you can do whatever you want. Right? You can play games with anything you can give, you can play games with it, and that is not the true intention of doing anything. So, but there is work happening here. And then, but if you look at it in the startup segment, these are some examples of Indian startups, right? So, you have startups in electric mobility, quite a few, in fact. If you look at electric mobility, two-wheelers, three-wheelers market, four-wheelers is not still big in India when it comes to electric mobility. Because, there's hardly, Tata has a new car, Nexon, but still very, very small market. But biggest market in India is two-wheelers and three-wheelers, in fact. Because it's used for fleets, it's used for transportation and so on and so forth. So there's a huge sector in electric mobility, and not only that, supporting those. Like I've come across a lot of companies doing indigenous development of electric motors, electric drives.
So there's a lot of companies, although we don't invest in it because as a fund, Ideaspring doesn't invest in manufacturing heavy companies. So, but there are a lot of such companies. So any of you interested, you should take a look at some of this indigenous development that's happening in India, product companies coming out specifically addressing these segments. Circular economy, is huge in India. India, if you look at it, although it is not formal, but very large informal sector of recycling. Okay, plastic you might say, but you'll be amazed how much plastic is recycled in India, right? Because they go pick these things up, they recycle it. But now you're also looking at circular economy, building for sustainability, the design for sustainability from day one. All those things are happening. Quite a few companies in clean energy. Greenco is a fairly large company now, so that's another space. And agri, right? 51% of India is employed in agri. GDP is only 17%, but 51% in agri. So there's a huge amount of work happening in the sustainability space. Some of it is digitization and some of it is actually manufacturing. Because I have invested in another company personally called WasteLink. What they do, they collect all the food waste and convert it into animal feed. And they're working with large companies like ITC and Procter & Gamble and things like that. So they collect all this waste and then convert it into animal feed. And this is not digitization, but actually contributes to sustainability. So these are some of the investments, just to give you a flavor, because I know my startups the best. I can't talk about various other startups, but this is some, these are companies in Ideaspring, in various sectors that I just discussed, that talks about what is happening in India with respect to startups. So electric mobility, Numosity is building a middleware to manage all the charging, payment, all the infrastructure. SmartShip, which is building a digital twin to reduce emissions in ships, and also completely digitize that pollution. And when you enter a port, you have to file all the documents, including pollution and gas, what kind of oil and so on and so forth. So we are doing that. Blue Jay is a company, EV company that's using hydrogen fuel to carry 1,000 kg payload. I think it'll be a game changer with respect to logistics. And then we have KCAT, which is an enzymatic company, which is building, manufacturing or identifying enzymes to replace all the chemicals in the APIs. And then we have Ambi, which is providing climate data. And then Oculo, again, a combination of solar and electric hybrid for surveillance management. So a lot of work. This is just one example of what's happening across India. Of course, our fund is focused only on tech. There are a lot of other funds that do both B2C and tech. So I think in our case, you will see a deeper or a higher proportion of product companies. But this gives you an idea as to what's happening in India today, right? Because if a small fund like me can invest in so many startups, just extrapolate it and you'll know what's happening in the industry, right? And this is, this better than me, I guess, in terms of what's happening with respect to global initiatives. But what is more important is India initiatives. So like I said, both state government and the central government is focused on a lot of various policies to enable and to further the cause of sustainability in India, right? And add to this what we are doing with respect to, yesterday I think you heard about Beacon. Beacon is one that is ONDC, but if you look at UPI, you look at Health Stack, I think the key change that has happened in India is India has become the powerhouse to soft export and software export, right? Now, MOSIP is an organization that is basically enabling 10 other countries to deploy Aadhaar in their own countries. And, we are working with the UN and so on and so forth. So I think in terms of our ability to develop software and deploy it for the world has gone up significantly. And, our awareness has gone up quite well. Capital availability has gone up quite well because we have a lot of other countries showing interest and investing in India. I think, not to say that there are no problems, government is government across the world. You have bureaucracy, you have issues, flip-flops. We all have to deal with that. That's part of the game. But overall, quite positive about where we can get through. Going through a tough phase right now. Hopefully, by the next conference, it'll be looking better. So that's all I had to say. And happy to take a couple of questions. Hope it was informative and you got something out of it. Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation and also showing us your portfolio of companies. So because we are running a little bit late, I will just ask one question, and I think you are there here in coffee break as well.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. From my side, I just want to ask you one thing. What do you see in the next 3 years from the investment cycle? Of course, we saw the 151 we saw around now. How far is the curve? Or is it still a slide for some time? Just personal estimation. We don't want to do it.
Yeah. So one thing I've learned is not to predict the future, right? So it's always very dangerous. You know, you say something and exactly opposite thing happens. But I think, you know, in talking to a lot of other people and seeing where the market is, we still believe the next 2 years will be tough. The next 2 quarters will be tough, right? Now, beyond that, you know, it's anybody's guess. You know, one more war or escalation or whatever will throw everything out of sync. So the only thing I can say is if things go as is, you know, hopefully in 2 quarters you'll start seeing things improve. In India specifically, I'll talk about India because that's a market I understand quite well. I think, you know, early stage investments have not seen any issues. You know, we have seen great entrepreneurs, great companies and, you know, ability to raise early stage capital. But Series A and beyond is very, very hard at this time. So we'll see a strong correction. Many companies will fall in the next 2 quarters because there's no capital, valuations are high and corrections will happen. But hopefully in 2 quarters, at least in the startup world, we'll start to see increase. And I don't want to comment on large companies because I don't understand them.
So
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting question. You know, last time at ITIC, we talked about this dry powder sitting on the side.
Yeah.
What is happening to this dry powder?
It'll sit. It'll earn interest, right? Because I know it is not the return VCs want to give, but it'll sit there because obviously, you know, there's so much uncertainty right now, right? In terms of, you know, because everybody thinks this deal will be cheaper 2 quarters down the road. If that is the case, no one will want to put money right now. So I think it's just wait and watch.
So it's value fishing.
Yes, absolutely.
People are also fishing, the VCs are fishing. So all right, just 2 digital thoughts. If you're a startup, put your head down and build. You know, first round is easy. You know, to start. That's what Ideaspring.
Nothing is easy. I didn't say it. Capital is available, but nothing is easy, including VCs raising capital. You know.
All right. So it's tough also for VCs to raise, you know, the capital that they need for a particular fund. So yes, it's a time to collaborate. Probably that I would say. Second, find partners. Next 2 quarters, be watchful. Look at your expenses and control them well. So let's give a big round of applause to Naganand. It was good, straight on the heart. Thank you so much. We'll be here till post coffee and so on.